Hello, listeners. My name is Charles Scott. The program in which you're about to listen to is called Can We Talk? The program is, again, as I say each week, is quite informative, and we're going to give you some information about the housing market and what you need to do to get prepared if you're looking to purchase a home, or in general, if you just want some information on what's happening within the housing market. Eldridge Gloria Brown is not here today. I'm filling in. And I want to give a shout out to her and wish her the best. She'll be here next week. With that, again, as I said, my name is Charles Scott. The program is called Can We Talk? Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the things happening in the real estate market, some of the things that may affect your life, and give you a better insight as to how you can plan for the future as far as housing, rental, or even if you are looking to purchase or sell a property. Again, my name is Charles Scott. I am the broker for Tri-State Realty, and I've been in business for over 37 years and serve on a lot of the committees throughout the state and also housing committees throughout the Bridgeport, Fairfield, New Haven area. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about some varied subjects. I've been getting some calls recently from individuals, and they talk about rent to own. And I don't know, just all of a sudden, for years I've been involved in the real estate industry, and we haven't really gotten that many calls on rent to own, but recently we've been getting quite a few calls. So I want to go over with you, the particulars. How does rent to own work? Well, to first start off, there's not very many, or if I haven't seen any rent to own in years. Years ago, they used to have different rent to own programs, and what happens is that's where you rent the house, and in a nutshell, eventually you own the house. And it's not all that simple, though. There's a lot of particulars that go into it. Usually it occurs when a person does not have the money saved up or doesn't have, in some cases, the credit to purchase a house right now, so they rent the house with an option to buy it later. And what happens is that you've got to almost be ready to buy the house now, but not have the money. Years ago, when houses were hard to sell, when the houses stayed on the market for quite a while and the owners were trying to sell the homes, then what they would do is they would entertain a rent to own. And how it would work is that, let's say the house would normally rent for $1,000 a month. And so instead of $1,000 a month, you would give them extra. In today's market, renting a house is no longer $1,000 a month. Renting a house is usually between $1,800 to $2,500 a month. So let's bring it up to today's market. Say you are renting a house for, let's say, $1,800 a month, and you can't buy it because you don't have all of the savings. So the landlord, instead of making the rent $1,800 a month, they make the rent $2,500 a month. That's an extra $700 a month. Now, what happens to that extra $700? Well, the extra $700 can be put towards like a savings account, an escrow account. So every month when you pay in your mortgage, not your mortgage, but your rent, there's an extra amount that's going into the savings. And over a period of time, that savings grows and grows and grows until you are able to purchase the house. Or it's not really until you're able to purchase the house. There's a set time. So let's say you plan on buying the house a year from now, and you're putting an extra $700 a month into that payment. So 700 times 12, what's that, $8,400? So you've got like $8,000 saved into that account. Now at the end of that year, you take the $800 and you use that as the down payment when you go to the bank to get a mortgage. The problem with rent to own is that you've almost got to be able to qualify to buy the house when you first start renting it. And if that's the case, then you might as well go ahead and buy it anyway, because the landlord wants to make sure that at the end of that period of time, you're going to be able to buy the house. Suppose your credit is not good and you do a rent to own. So now you're doing a rent to own, your credit is not good, and you need time to build up your credit. So the landlord decides to rent to you and use the extra money at the end for a down payment. Well, at the end of that year, if your credit is still not good, then you're right back to where you started from. Not only that, remember, you promised the landlord that you would be ready in a year to buy the house. Problem is, if you're not ready, the landlord can ask you to leave at the end of that year and keep your $8,000. Why is he keeping the $8,000? Because that was the time he gave you to get your act together, to get your savings together, to get your credit together. And if you don't do that, then you can lose, because the money you gave him can go to the landlord. So you got to realize it's a gamble. Or let's say, for example, you needed time on the job. In other words, in order to get a mortgage, you have to be on the job, in most cases, 2 years. Suppose you've only been on the job for 1 year and you want to purchase a house. So now, at the end, for the first year, you've been on the job, now you need another year. So you do a rent to own. At the end of that year, now you've been on the job 2 years, so you should be able to buy the house. But what happens if you get laid off and now you're not on the job for 2 years? Again, at the end of that year, you could forfeit and lose that money that you put down. So you see, it's not a easy situation where you just go in there and you just get a rent to own, and at the end of the year, you buy the house. It's not guaranteed. Your credit can go down. Your job could be unstable. Some of anything can happen. You could get sick. You could decide that you don't want to buy the house. So you forfeit the money the extra money that you gave to the landlord, because he's taking a chance with you, because you're guaranteeing him that you will be able to, buy that particular house. Now, you need a lawyer to put together the agreement. When you're doing a rent to own, you have to get a lawyer, and the lawyer puts together the agreement between you and the landlord. You definitely should have a lawyer, because if you let the landlord put together the agreement, he's going to actually have the agreement. It's going to be all basically one-sided and his side, usually. So make sure you have a lawyer, and the lawyer puts together the agreement for you. And then the lawyer will, tell you what your obligations are, and the lawyer will tell the landlord what his obligations are. So this is one of the things that you definitely need. You need an agreement. Also, in that agreement, you have to put what price range that you're going to be buying the house for, or a price. Suppose the house is selling for, let's say, $250,000. And the landlord and you agree that that's going to be the selling price. Now, sometimes the advantage to you is that if the prices go up, and now you are buying it at a lower price, let's say the market is more. You're buying a house for $250,000, and so when you get ready to buy it, it's worth $3,000. Well, that's a good deal to you, because the landlord can't change the price. Now, what if the prices go down? Then you may have a trouble getting a mortgage, because the bank will not loan you the money if the house does not appraise. Now, also, the landlord takes a chance, because if he agrees to sell you the house for $250,000, and now all the other houses are selling for $300,000, then he's going to start thinking, well, I'm losing money. I could have gotten more money. But remember, both parties have to agree to the rent-to-own contract. Now, usually a lot of those agreements might be out where there's thousands and thousands of houses for sale, and it's hard to sell those homes. You don't find that type of agreement around Fairfield County, New York area that much, because the houses are selling fairly quickly. So a landlord doesn't want to wait a year in order to sell the property when he can sell it right away. So he's not looking to tie his house up for an entire year, especially a lot of the landlords out there now. They've been waiting to sell their homes for a long time, and now the prices are up. So all they want to do is sell the house. They don't want to tie it up in a rent-to-own situation. So if you look in the MLS, if you look in the newspaper, you don't see too many rent-to-owns anymore. That, like I said, that was years and years and years ago. The other thing you hear people talk about is a dollar house. Years ago, you used to have there actually is still a program where you buy a house for $1. But how does that work? Every now and then I get a call for that. Those are usually houses that need a tremendous amount of work. It might be a fire-damaged house. It might be a house that's been sitting vacant for 15 years. So the city wants to get rid of the property, so they sell it to you. But your agreement has to be to fix the property up, to put it back on the tax rolls. It may cost you $100,000 to fix that property up. You might need new roof, new floors, new walls, new ceiling, new everything. So you have to give them a plan and show them that you have the money to totally renovate the house and bring it back to the market, building codes, electrical codes. So if you get it for $1, you spend $100,000 or $200,000 fixing it up. Now you might as well have just bought another house, because now the city is saying, well, we're now getting taxes from that property. But look at how much money it costs you to fix the property up. And that was when there was a tremendous amount of properties. Remember in New York, you had a lot of properties like in the South Bronx, and a lot of properties deteriorating, thousands and thousands of empty buildings. Hey, now those properties are selling for millions and millions of dollars, so you're not going to find a house for $1, that's for sure. Even if it's falling down, if it's just a little tiny little lot. So even those days are going by. So you see, things change. So when you hear that term, rent to own or inexpensive houses, there's always a catch to it. I get a lot of people that'll call me and I'll say to them, have you been pre-qualified for a mortgage? First thing they say is, if they haven't been, oh, I'm paying cash. Okay, that sounds good. But, when you're paying cash for a house, number one, you have to have the money. You just can't say that. You can't say I'm paying cash, and then I ask, where's the money coming from? Oh, don't worry about that. Well, I worry about that because, you got to have the money. If you're going to pay cash for a house, you have to show what they call proof of funds. That means you have to show where the money is at now, not where it's coming from, but where is it at? Do you already have the money? Is it in a savings account? Is it in a bank account? Do you have to sell a property? Is someone loaning you the money? All of this has to be proven. You just can't say, don't worry about it, that I'm going to have the cash. You already have to have the cash in the hand. If you are putting an offer in on a property and you write up a contract, on the contract it states whether it's going to be cash and proof of funds. That means you have to show a bank statement showing that the money that you have in that account is going to be used to buy a property. So in other words, you're better off just trying to get a mortgage when you're looking to buy a house. And you're better off preparing for it and getting ready for it. And now, what are some of the things that you need to do? Well, if you're looking to buy a house, there's mainly 4 things you need. 1, job, naturally. You have to be on that job at least 2 years. So if you, or either, let's say you were doing, say you were a truck driver and you switched jobs. Well, that's okay as long as your new job is also going to be that of a truck driver. So you can switch from one job to another job, but at the same time, it's got to be the same kind of work. So if you're a truck driver for 1 year at one company and then 1 year at another company, that's okay, because when you add it all up, it comes to 2 years. So that's what they look for. They look for 2 years of employment. and you can't have a big lapse of time. With the coronavirus, some people were laid off or furloughed, let's say for 4 or 5 months. Well, if you work for the same company and you were out of work for 6 months, then that's no good, because now there's 6 months in between that you really weren't working. So you've got to add up some more time in there and go back to your work and show the bank statements, and also the payroll statements that you've not depleted all your money and used up all your money. So if you're looking to purchase a home, remember 2 years on the job, and then on top of that, you should save up as much money as you can. A lot of times people are asking about first-time home buyer programs or this program. Programs are okay, but you need to have some money of your own in the game. Even if you're going to be working on, let's say, getting a grant to help you buy a house, remember, before you even apply for the grant or any of those things, you've got to have some money saved up, because when you go to put an offer in on a house, you have to have a deposit. Well, the grant doesn't give you the money up front to put down on the house, so you've got to have at least money to put down on a house. And in most cases, you need at least 1% of the money to put down as a deposit. So you need the deposit to put down on the house. Then you have to get insurance on the house. That's usually about $1,200, $1,400, because you got to have insurance when you put insurance on a house in case that the house were to burn down. If you get approved, you got to get the insurance. Remember, also, you have to have the house inspected. So if you're going to have the house inspected, that usually runs anywhere from $600 to $700, and then you got to have the house appraised. And all of these things are before you even get approved for your mortgage. In other words, you find a house, but you have it inspected, you have the appraisal done, you get insurance. All of these things you have to have money for. You got to have a deposit. So save as much money as you possibly can to be able to get into the position to be able to buy the house. What else are they looking for? They're looking for to look at the bank statements to see how much money you do have in that bank account, because you're going to have, like I said, some money in that bank account. The other thing is 2 years on the job, money in your bank account, and don't go creating any bills. That's the other thing. That's a big no-no. You can charge on your credit card, normal stuff, but don't go out and buy a new car. That hurts people. Don't go buying furniture. Don't go on vacations. Don't go out of the country spending $2,000 or $3,000 on a vacation. Your main purpose here is to buy the house. Once you get the house, then you can look into all of these other things. But don't go spending a lot of money needlessly without being able to purchase the property. So keep your credit up. Has situations recently where a person was buying a house, found a house after months of looking, put a deposit on the house, had the inspection done, had the appraisal done, but then all of a sudden the bank rechecked the credit, and the credit went down by 4 points. It doesn't sound like a lot, but remember, if you're borderline and your credit goes down, it can make a big difference in being able to qualify for one program or the other. You may still qualify for a house, but remember, different programs require different credit scores. Some banks require a 620 credit score to do an FHA mortgage. Some banks say, okay, 620 is not good enough for us. We want 670. And then maybe you're getting a low interest rate. And you're getting a low interest rate because you have an excellent credit score. Suppose you have a 675. And so you're getting a low interest rate. Now you qualify for a $300,000 house. But now all of a sudden, your credit score went down by, let's say, 6 points. So now instead of your credit score being 675, it's 669. Well, that excellent interest rate that you program that you were getting, you no longer qualify for because your score went down. So now you no longer qualify for $300,000. You qualify for 280. Well, now you just disqualified yourself from buying that house because your credit score went down, the interest rate went up, and you qualified for less money. So once you start out, you got to keep your credit score up to where it was when you first started out, and don't do anything to affect that credit score. And then there's the two things, like I said, don't buy a car, and whatever you do, continue paying your student loan. Because if your student loan is in default, or you're not making the payments, you can still get a mortgage without making the payments, but they're going to still use a certain, I think it's like on 1%, now they reduced it, of what the payment should be. Even though you're not making a payment on your student loan, they're going to hit you with a payment because they know it's got to be paid back eventually. But the worst thing you could do with a student loan is not pay it at all and default. You can't get a mortgage then. Why is that? Because remember, when you got a student loan, where's the money come from? Sallie Mae. Sallie Mae is usually an agency of the government that gives out student loans. When you get a mortgage, the money comes from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and FHA, all these other government programs. So the way they look at it is, why will we give you money on one government program when you haven't paid money back on your student loan government program? So be careful that you don't do that. And so if you're looking to buy a house, you're going to need at least 4 pay stubs, 2 bank statements, good credit, and on the job 2 years. So, and some savings, save up some money. Those are the things that you need to be able to get into a house. Now, you may say, my friend bought a house and they didn't have to do all of these different things. Well, that's true. Years ago, the mortgage industry changes. As things get tighter, mortgage standards change. What your friend did years ago, they didn't have to do what you have to do. They've made the mortgage program a little stricter because they want to make sure people can afford to pay for their mortgages, and that they don't get caught up and lose their mortgage by not being able to pay for it. So there are programs out there that are different. Now let's say you're self-employed. That's a totally different program because it's hard to verify the income in most cases. If you're out there and you're self-employed and you want to buy a house, I don't have to tell you, you know how tough it is to get a mortgage because of one thing: tax returns. If you're self-employed, they want to see your tax returns because that's the only way they can basically tell if you made any money. And most self-employed people, they put in a lot of deductions because they want to get a lot of money back from Uncle Sam. And even, you don't have to be like self-employed with a business. I work with a lot of the medical profession. I work a lot with CNAs. So you hear that catchword, CNA, Certified Nurses Assistant. A lot of the CNAs, in some cases, they get a 1099. What's that mean? That means when they go to work, they work for private duty or for a patient. If they make $600 a week, then they get $600 a week. No deductions taken out for income tax, nothing. That doesn't mean you don't have to pay your income tax, because at the end of the year, the person who gave you that money tells the IRS, I gave the CNA $600 a week. It's up to the CNA to pay her own taxes because she may be an independent contractor. So that means you're in business for yourself. You get all the money, and it's your responsibility to pay the taxes. So at the end of the year, you might owe, if you don't pay during the year, you're going to owe Uncle Sam money for those taxes. So you want to try and reduce the amount of taxes you pay. So you put into the equation, I had to pay for uniforms, clean my uniforms, gas for my car, education, all of these little things, meals. So if you made, let's say, $45,000 a year, by the time you put in all of these deductions and all of this and that, you might end up making $25,000 a year. So now you don't have to pay as much taxes. That sounds good. Only one problem. Now when you go to borrow the money, the bank is going to say, how much did you make? And you say $45,000 a year, and they look on your taxes and they say, you took in $45,000, but you say you had to pay $20,000 for expenses, so you only made, $20,000 or $25,000 a year. That's not going to make it available for you to buy a house. So same thing happens if you are self-employed, if you're a carpenter or plumber or whatever it may be. So just remember, when you're doing your taxes, don't take a lot of deductions, because when you take all of those deductions, in other words, it's going to make it harder for you to borrow money when you're saying you don't make a lot of money. So I'm not saying don't take, legitimate deductions, but a lot of times people just throw a whole lot of other things in there too, just to make it so that their taxes are lower. But that doesn't help you when you're buying a house. Now, there is one program that a self-employed person can use, and that program is called No Income, No Asset. But it's a program where they don't look as stringently at your income. They don't look at your tax returns sometimes. But what's the catch? The interest rate is high, and you've got to put down 25-30% of your own money down. So there is that program that's out there for self-employed people. If you were buying a house and you put 25-30% down, then they're not as strict. So call me about that program too. So again, hopefully I was able to give you some information today that help you. And next week we have different types of programs. So again, my name is Charles Scott. I'm the broker for Tri-State Realty. And until next week, God bless. God bless.